Density, a lot of the housing development here, just purely in arithmetical terms, is pretty dense. Diversity, I think there's an issue. In the sense that I understand diversity, both in terms of the actual amalgamation with non-residential uses in a fairly, not just superficially one store here and one store there, but in a more profound way, as well as the, not so much the unit types, but the unit flexibility, right? Other than the project I saw of yours, which would lend itself to that, seems to lag behind, and what the implications of that might or might not be, which is not a topic I think I'm allowed to speak about, but socioeconomic diversity is of course another issue here that's probably might be set outside of the question of the housing per se. As far as connectivity is concerned, I kind of freaked out when someone showed me the subway map, or what do you call it, the MRT map? Because it seems to me that there's a lot of line, but it's not doing a lot of work in terms of this spatial. Is that true? It must be true. I actually wrote on it once. I got away from my minders in the middle of the night. Not in the middle of the night, but close. And what I mean is that if you look at, for example, the Tokyo system, you have a lot of roads. I mean, I showed an image of it. A lot of the lines are going around like this, and a lot of radial. Here it's very much radial, but they're fairly far apart. And so the whole idea of levelling the playing field across a horizontal surface, which is the aim, I think, of most transit designs, seems to me to be lacking here, and could be improved dramatically. And I've heard stories about trains stopping or something like that. But I mean, that's... Oh, heck, in Boston, we had these snows last winter, and our trains froze, which meant they did stop, thank God. They didn't keep going. And I'm a guy who rides transit. I'm not a car driver. So that's an issue. Compactness, it's hard to know. I mean, I'm not sure that's one of these criteria that you can kind of level at projects within cities. It's more about, like I showed you with Beijing and Shanghai, the city itself. And of course, Shanghai's bounded, right? It's an island and it's a city-state. And I suppose the thing there that drives compactness is the trade-off between the areas that are occupiable potentially or really today by urbanisation versus the lands that are set aside for the military, which you really have to have. If this is on the state side of things. In my view, you have to have the military. The petrochemical island, for example, which is a sort of, to my way of thinking, a good economic investment, even though a lot of people may not like it particularly, you need to have it. The persistence of manufacturing these days, I mean, heck, looking at the way the economic circumstances in East Asia and elsewhere is going, that seems to me insurance. So in a funny kind of a way, other parameters that are tied up with the state aspect of the city-state are confining you, and so the compactness issue tends to take care of itself, it seems to me. So with rising density, I think you could be more compact. There's one term I didn't mention in this because I haven't really figured out all the metrics of it and how to kind of like describe it exactly. And that has to do with intensity, measured, for example, GDP per square kilometre. In the Singapore case, it's about, I think, 300 million per square kilometre. But in Manhattan and New York, well, not just New York, and not just Manhattan, in New York, it's 1 billion. Which is about 3 to 4 times as much, which sort of gives an indication because let's see it. New York has got a density of around 12,000 people per square kilometre. Manhattan's big; it's 27,000. I know that much. That's where I live. Singapore's at about 7,000, right? So if you're using that as a rough comparison, there's room for movement in Singapore upwards. And if you're thinking, well, okay, 2030 we go to 7 million, you can do it. And probably not in much of an alteration of footprint. So the compaction issue would go away and, you'd find more investment in the kind of intensity, economic intensity. space to be made up. It's all right to stay.